Welcome, everyone, to Monday Afternoon Roundtable. This is our third and last edition on the Davina Buff Jones case. We promised everyone we'd have a final edition on this case. It's going to be kind of short. Jason, Tim's behind the scenes working the desk today, but I got some pictures for today's episode. Went over to Bald Head Island. Quite a trip.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Before we get started, we need to apologize. It's been probably 3 weeks since we've done one of these, and
I believe this is the most busiest time all three of us have been at one time.
I know. It's, feast or famine, so we got to take it when it's there.
But the problem is, Tim and I are retired.
Yeah.
So what's up with that?
I don't know.
I've never been busier. I'll go ahead and tell you.
Yeah, I've been pretty busy the last
That's a
couple
good
weeks.
thing. We're not complaining.
We're
not complaining.
But we can't sometimes keep our regular schedule for podcasts.
All right. Tim, are you going to zoom in and out on these photos, or are you just we're going to play it? What we'll do, we'll put these on our Facebook page, on the Monday Afternoon Roundtable Facebook page, where you can go in, and there's about 15 or so. But these are photos that I took while I was at Bald Head Island, and these were photographs associated with the crime scene and places Davina where she was murdered, and places she is associated with during the crime scene. Our first and second episode focused mainly on the sheriff, and the second episode focused mainly on the district attorney, and how basically the whole county was, a lot of politics played a part in this murder. It was first categorized as a suicide, and as we talked about in those episodes, she was shot center in the back of the head with her Glock. Was it a Glock pistol? Yes.
Yep.
Semi-automatic 40 caliber. It's difficult to do, especially when a 95-pound short arm female. This island is a barrier island, access only by ferry. Passenger ferry only, not vehicle ferry. They do have vehicle ferries for large trucks and things like that to bring food and products over, but it's accessed by passenger ferry only. Davina was 33 years old. She was killed in October 1999. Again, ruled a suicide. And we'll get into where she was killed and the circumstances surrounding the case. But what I want you and I and Tim to talk about today is what our theory is, what we feel happened during this case. And I know you've had time to think about it, and we'll go into detail about that. But the first photograph I wanted to show you was kind of unique, is the old English-style phone booth. And that was the phone booth that she used that night. She left the police department. As you recall, she was kind of placed back under field training supervision because she had received 8 complaints in a short 10-month period. She'd only been out of training for a short time and received 8 complaints. You probably didn't receive that many in your entire career. Tim did, but you and I probably didn't.
Yeah.
But she was an aggressive officer, and she was by the book, and she did things like she was supposed to. If you screwed up, you were gonna get either a citation or a warning or some kind of action. She wasn't going to turn her head and move on. So that night, what I was saying is she got a lot of complaints from the citizens there at Bald Head Island. Once again, these are the 1% population in the United States, billionaires, not millionaires, billionaires mostly, that own property there. And while I was there, I went to the very end of the island, to the point. And I want our viewers and listeners to look at a map of Bald Head Island and how it's shaped. And it's the very tip of North Carolina, the island, and how it's shaped. And when you wonder, when the hurricanes happen, why we get hit so hard, the way that island's shaped. And it gets reshaped every time there's a hurricane.
Sure.
There's homes at the very end of the barrier island there that there's no telling what they cost and why people build there. It baffles me. But anyhow, she's trying to do her job. She was probably making minimum wage or right at it. They were more of a security position, more so than they were police officers. I had an opportunity to talk to a couple of police officers while I was there. One was just in passing on the ferry. She took the ferry. All the officers, none of them live there. They take the ferry back and forth every day. Most live at the Oak Island, that area of the beach on the mainland, and they ferry over every night or every day.
I assume if they have a prisoner, they have to take it via.
They do, but they have a jail. They have a temporary holding facility.
They can hold them
there.
till the next morning.
Yeah, And there's a photograph that shows the old jail where it was, and you're gonna laugh when you see that. All right, let's to the phone booth here. English style, old fashioned phone booth, still in service today, which I found interesting. You see all the golf carts. That's the mode of transportation there, Jason, and that's how everyone travels around. And these aren't your typical golf carts. These are first class, really nice golf carts. I rented one for the day and just tooled around, talked to people. They were having a large wedding, a lot of weddings on the island. Extremely, I thought I knew some wealthy people. I don't. These folks were very, very wealthy. But this is where she made the phone call to her estranged boyfriend that night. And there's a lot of questions dealing with that. He was a narcotics detective in the county where this occurred. Of course, most of the activity, again, was on the mainland, but this barrier island was easy access for any kind of narcotic activity because it was not enforced. There was very little enforcement there because that's the way they wanted it. That's the way the city council wanted it. That's the way the city manager wanted it. As we recall in episode 2, we talked about the city manager was on the scene the night of her murder. And Tim asked the question, well, why was he there in the first place? So she was talking to him. And according to him, and he's adamant that she didn't kill herself. So that kind of sends a strong message, in my opinion, that, okay, was he involved or not? If he says that, most likely not, wouldn't you think?
Oh, yeah.
So anyhow, but it's strange that all right, this is at the very extreme southern point of the island. As you can see, the waves are meeting. And I'm sure our viewers are going to have a hard time seeing this if we're watching this online, but I want them to go on our Facebook page and see this because it's the tide and the undercurrent there is just extreme. You can't swim in this part of the ocean. There's a lot of fishermen on both sides, but this is the very southern part of the Atlantic Ocean there in North Carolina. It's a beautiful spot, but and that's where she patrolled a lot of times. And this is just another angle of the phone booth. And this was one of the high-end restaurants near the ferry, where the ferry boat ports and picks up the passengers to load and to unload. And it comes in about at least every hour. Here, old Dave Munday. That's the church beside Old Baldy Lighthouse. And we've all heard of Old Baldy, and I got some good pictures of that. This church is remarkable, and it's right within 50 yards of where she was murdered. This is the roadway. This is the church here in Old Baldy's just to the left. This fence line is where she was murdered. That's where her body was found, near the fence line. At the time, it appears in 1999, this was a lot of gravel in this area. It wasn't paved based on the minimal crime scene photos that were taken. But her body was found in this area right here. Old Baldy's getting some work done. This is the Old Baldy Lighthouse. The section where the picket fence, is where her body was found. Her officer, field training officer, he was having lunch at the police department at the time when she called in that she was going to be out with 3, if you recall in episode 1 and 2, meaning 3 subjects. And then the radio was silent, and then she keyed up, but she wasn't talking directly in the mic. She said there's no need for a gun on Bald Head, and then you could tell there was a scuffle, and then the mic went, you heard her screaming, and then next thing you know, he found her dead several minutes later. You can see this is a huge tourist attraction, as you can imagine. The lighthouse is to the right. The post office and everything is to the left. Her body was found where this young lady's standing to the right in the black jumpsuit. It's another photograph of Old Baldy. You can climb to the top of the lighthouse, which is kind of unique. Even under the construction, they're allowing people to go up there. I've only been up in there one time, and if you got claustrophobia, you do not want to go up on top of that lighthouse. You have to literally, it's just a small opening that you have to go squeeze yourself through. And once you get up there, it's still tight. But it's a beautiful view once you get up to the top. Okay, as you can see, the foliage goes out to the back, and there's an inlet that comes in from the waterway, and that's where the drug activity would occur. The theory from the new district attorney and the new sheriff is that that's what was going on. Some drug activity was coming in, most likely cocaine, or heroin coming in from the boats, and she intercepted that activity. And Tim, if you think of anything, interject any time, but that's just another view of that opening there where we think the phone booth is just beyond the lighthouse. And there was a little short pathway that came in, a golf cart pathway that her vehicle would have fit through, that we think that she come down when she saw activity in there after she used the telephone. And as you can see back in there is where the inlet is that comes through. And about where that picket fence comes out is where her body was found. And it's tragic. There's no monument. There's no memorial. There's nothing there. And when I walked into the gift shop, there was a young lady working there, probably about your stepdaughter's age, or daughter's age too, standing in there. And I asked her a question about it. So, well, we don't talk about that here. We don't talk about that here. And I said, okay. And so I walked out, and then I went to a restaurant, and I'll show you a photograph of that place later. But she was all about it. She said, "Oh, I've heard about it. I'd love to hear more about it." So I told her to tune into our podcast, and she told all the girls inside. This is the gift shop to your right, and the lighthouse is just beyond. And again, I think this area was gravel. As we talked about in the other episodes, the crime scene was, because of the church there was an expensive, high-profile wedding going to take place the next morning after the murder. So they called the fire department. The paramedics got there. They lifted her onto the gurney, took her to the port, to the ferry boat, squirted the roadway off with the fire hose. The crime scene was totally ruined at that point. There was no crime scene left to even investigate. But that's the area where it all took place. That's looking back from the other side, where you can see the open area going back to the waterway where the boat. It's not a large area. It's where a small boat would connect with a larger boat that could come into the ferryway or to the waterway. And Old Baldy's one of the oldest lighthouses, and if you remember, it shoots a beam straight up instead of a rotating light. And how bad it's weathered, as you can see on the side, how bad the wind and the water has damaged it. And that's a school that I work. This is the old post office there at Bald Head Island. It's right across from the lighthouse, and I'm not 100% sure that was even there when the murder occurred. I guess all the pictures, I'm pretty sure. Yes, it is. That's all of them. But in putting all this together, going to visit the scene, and talking to one officer was on the ferry, and in speaking with him, I noticed he had paramedic bag, so he was full service, public safety.
Which makes sense for that.
He could fight a fire, he could provide CPR, stop bleeding, basically do it all. And he was, you could tell he loved his job. I didn't go into didn't tell him who I was, what I was there. I just kind of spoke with him on the ferry. The second officer, and I thought I had the picture of it. Obviously, I don't. I'll have to go in and check. But it was of the old police department, and I don't seem to have it on here. But I'll look for it later. But and I'll just talk about it. But the old police department is now a bar and grill. And they got the jail inside, and you can see it in the back. And that they told me that's where the old police department used to be. And the new police department is a nice, it's got the fire department, police department, it's a public safety building. Extremely nice, but it's in the same area where the other one was. So I got the coordinates. It would take, if you were traveling in an emergency, high speed, and again, there's no roads. It's all a wide golf cart path, basically. There's 2 lanes. And there's a median in the middle with foliage, and it would be a minimum of 5 to 7 minutes to get from the police department to where she was. She was dead upon his arrival. He checked for pulse and everything, so she was dead. He wanted to protect that scene, but in the same time, he was afraid that there was somebody still out there.
Yeah, and may very well have still been around.
Yeah.
He just, I mean, we don't know.
Yeah, most likely, or I'm gonna give my opinion. Most likely, it was a drug deal, and she drove up on it. They killed her because I think she come across them on the ferry coming over. Is what I think. They were going to meet the deal coming in on the small boat. They were going to help unload and stay overnight there on the island, and then ship it out to another vessel the next morning. She had already seen them. Remember, she connected with 3 people on the boat, made them pour their beer out, if you recall. And I think they had no choice. If it was a large enough drug deal, they had no choice. And so they killed her, and they de-assed that area. They jumped on that small boat and got out at that time. And the sheriff, who we all know, was he was Superman in his own mind. He was corrupt. He was charged, sent to prison, died in his own jail after serving time in prison, in federal prison. The DA was beat in the next election. Now the new sheriff and the new DA changed it from suicide to homicide. So it's a cold case that's back open. And hopefully, they'll find it. But I'm in my heart, I think it was a drug deal gone bad. She drove up on it, and it just went south.
Do we know the night of the murder with the phone call to the narcotics boyfriend? Who initiated the call? Do we know that?
Yes, she did. She called him. Mm-hmm. According to him, she told him, look, I know it's over. I still have feelings for you, but if we can't be lovers, we can be friends. Pretty much was the gist of the phone call. And he's adamant that she did not kill herself.
And what time of night was it?
It was about 11:45, midnight. It was close to midnight.
And was he on duty at the time, or
not that I'm aware of? I can't recall, to answer your question 100%. I don't think he was, but he was a pretty aggressive narcotics officer, from what I could tell, and was related to the sheriff at the time that went to prison, that was killed in his own jail, which makes it all the more.
Yeah, you don't think maybe he turned her on to a tip?
He very well
said, if you're out there, go check it.
He very well could have.
And then it went bad, and he didn't want to admit that later on.
I never thought about that, but he very well could have.
I've got this tip, and you're already on the island. Go check it for me.
He very well could have. I think she stumbled on it accidentally. I think when she saw those 3 guys, and she referred to them as Mexican males, and when on the boat, that she made them pour the beer out, and they did. And then she said out with 3. She didn't call them Mexican males at that point. And then the lady wrote the book Out with 3, and I'm yet to read it. But
does their communications go countywide, or is it just there?
No, it's countywide.
So everybody heard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've got the audio, and I tried to download it, and it was just being difficult to deal with. But it's online, and I want people to hear that, because it'll tingle your spine to hear it. It's scary to hear her say, there ain't no need for a gun on Bald Head. And then to hear her scream and fight for her life, and next thing you know, she's dead. I can just feel what her family is going through, or has gone through in the last.
And they were from Charlotte, correct?
They were originally. Then they retired and moved to Oak Island. And then that's when she took the job, all 95 pounds of her. Excuse me, at Bald Head. And she's a damn good cop. And why there's no monument or anything about her. But another little story about being there at Bald Head, I spoke to that waitress, and I asked her, I said, is there no memorials? Because I was there the day before her death, the time of her death in October. And she said, no. She said, I often wonder if, if they ever did anything for her. And I even asked one of the police officers, I said, are you going to have any kind of memorial service? And he said, no. So you can tell it's kind of a, put it over here and let's not talk about it anymore, which is sad. Hell, Jason, I'd never heard of it, and I've been in law enforcement as long as I had.
I never heard of it.
Until,
Let's take it from her and go backwards. The FTO, are we pretty sure he's on the straight and narrow?
Yes.
Her partner.
Yes.
No problem with him.
Oh, no, he's squared away.
All right, let's look at boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, friend, whatever, the one she called, the narcotics guy. Let's look at worst case scenario. He was involved somehow, some way. Either he was on the take or dirty or whatever, and knew what was going on, or he was straight up and may have unwillingly gave intelligence to a dirty cop that he worked with.
His uncle,
Possibly.
the sheriff.
Possibly. But I'm with all y'all and the officer. I think that was a drug deal, and they picked that location because it was not, it's not very highly populated.
Yeah.
It's not enforced. I don't know about the boat thing because you showed the picture with the waves. Would it be at that part? Would it be
that part you couldn't come in? No,
Yeah,
no
but
way. But that's what I'm saying. You come in on the waterway on the inlet side,
Mhm.
and it's smooth.
Okay.
It's easy. It's where the ferries come in. Same direction, and then it is cut off. Instead of coming where the ferry comes, there's a little bitty strip of water. It's almost like a creek, Jason.
Okay.
And they come in, and only small boats can come in there. The ferry would be too big to come in that part.
So
But
we-
it comes in right behind the
All right.
lighthouse.
So she was out with 3. It could have been the 3 guys that come on the ferry that she made pour out the beer. Probably was. But who are they meeting? Are they meeting a local, or are they meeting the guy coming in the boat, or are they meeting somebody that come in on another ferry?
No, I think they met the people that was coming in on the small boat with the drugs.
Yeah.
But let me back up. The sheriff at the time found those 3, found them, and you know what he said? Those were God-fearing men.
Did he ID them?
They're God-fearing men.
But do
And
we know who they
police
are?
chief at the time, who has since died, female police chief, and I can't recall her name, but she's the one that come out after all this. The gag order was lifted and said, "Oh hell no! These guys were drug dealing. They had rap sheets a mile long for trafficking drugs, and they should have been looked at in more detail." She died at a very young age.
Do we
as
know
well.
their name? I mean, were their names?
I'm looking all that up. I haven't found their names yet, but I'll find them.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a whole lot of correlation there with that. And but what Tim said makes a whole lot of sense. That I hadn't even
No.
went down that road yet.
Yeah.
And what you're saying, he may have said something to the
Just he may have gave out intelligence without realizing it to the bad guys.
correct.
He could have had a dirty cop working in his unit, not
right.
know it, and say, I'm dating old little Susie, whatever D or whatever Davina. She's a ball breaker, but she only weighs 95 pounds. They might think, well, it don't matter if she is a hard charger.
But that makes more sense, Jason. Why did she leave the police department that night? She said she had something to do.
Mm-hmm.
She was supposed to stay with that sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
He was supposed to follow her. They could stay in separate cars, but he had to be behind her everywhere
I think she would
went.
I think she would have got in trouble if she made the bust of a lifetime without. I mean, I think she would have got in trouble.
Maybe,
I think she stumbled.
Or would she have been able to prove herself?
Well, yeah, but I still think. But she may have thought that. She may have thought, hey, if I prove myself, I won't have to go through all this mess again.
No, yeah, that makes sense.
I think she might have been on the phone, heard some noise, just checking it out. I don't know. And then it escalated quicker
She
than
could have easily heard a small boat, a vessel coming in, a propeller, what do you call them?
prop
boat.
Yeah.
John boat
Yeah.
coming in around the corner easily from where she was. It's not 100 yards from where she was on that phone. And there's not much activity at night through there, and she could have easily heard it. But it makes sense. Would she have? I think she would have called for backup had she known it would have been a drug deal.
I think it was so quick. And I think she attempted to call. That's why she couldn't go up to the lapel mic. She mashed it on the side. That's why it sounded,
Well, she called out she'd be out with 3.
Yeah, but then
she
the-
did that
but then
legitimately.
But then
Had she known it had been a drug deal, I think she'd have said, "Give me some backup."
yeah.
But then she saw, oh shit, he's got a gun.
She's probably drawing down and mashing this at the same time, doing the transmission on the radio.
But if they had a gun, why did they shoot her with their own gun? That's the big question.
Well, I think all right, this is going to be awful for me to say, and I'm on Monday morning quarterback.
just be real careful.
I will, but I think she should have shot them and didn't shoot them.
Oh well, okay. Yeah.
I think she drew down on them before they did, draw down on her, and she seen they had the gun, and instead of going ahead and shooting them, I think she
hesitated.
whatever reason.
We've all done that.
Yeah. And then somehow, that bad guy's got the gun. A second bad guy goes around behind her and pushes her or something, anything. I don't know. Or has a gun and says, all right, drop yours. Then gets her gun.
They think they may have put her on her knees because she had the scuff marks on her knees.
Yeah, it sounds like an execution.
Yeah.
Murder.
But she wasn't beat up, though. She wasn't manhandled.
No. And had she been shot in the back of the head, she would have fallen face down. But they said she had scuff marks on her knees where she went down on her knees and then fell forward. It's bizarre.
It's sad too.
That was terrible. It's awful.
But she died in vain. I mean, there's the fact that there's no remembrance of her. There's no memorial for her service. It's like she's forgotten.
And she sounds like she was probably the best officer in that whole county at that time.
By far.
I mean,
and she tried to do a good job.
Trying to do the right thing and working hard and doing,
1999, I mean, there was a lot of females in police work, but not that many, especially her size.
Yeah.
And so.
And I'm not, her hesitation, I would, if that is, in my theory, is because she's new. She doesn't. That's probably the first time she's ever had to draw down on somebody. Probably.
I
mean, and thinking, oh, is this going to be legal? Is that how you
and
a
she's
thousand
been in
things.
much trouble before.
Yeah, am I going to get in trouble for pointing my gun at this person?
No hell, I'm going to get fired for sure. Now.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that hesitation from that. I mean, that would be reasonable. Yeah. It's unfortunate, but it's reasonable what somebody in that situation would.
So your theory supports mine that she drove up on a drug deal or a drug transaction of large magnitude, and it just went south, and she was killed by.
And we have to put in perspective. It doesn't have to be what is a large amount for somebody worth killing somebody might not. What we think, it might not be a kilo of cocaine. It might be it might be it might just be an ounce to somebody. They say, well, I got $1,000 in on this.
Yeah.
To me that's So it may not have to be a huge deal, but it was enough to make those people, and it was willing to kill her.
Right. But you got to remember, there's no TSA.
Mm-mm.
And it's similar to boarding an aircraft from the ferry. Literally, you go, they pack your bags are.
And this was before 9/11, so there's no checking of, nobody's really on alert.
Right.
They're not checking your carry on, whatever you got, bringing across on that ferry.
That's true. Think about that. But they were people there, had the funding and the funds and the ways and means to buy large amounts of drugs.
Oh yeah.
And it was so easy because there was no enforcement, and the people that made the rules didn't want enforcement.
Yeah, I think my theory also is that it's nobody on the island that lived there was involved. I think the people were just picking that area just because of the isolation.
Well, there was only 300 plus people that actually lived there.
Yeah,
that lived and that made that their.
They may have been your mainline customers. Though.
They may have been. But I would think, you don't want to crap in your own nest. I would think they'd go somewhere else and get their.
Well, I mean, you stand a chance of getting caught.
Yeah, you do. But I
big city.
I don't think they're worried so much as what getting caught is so much as what their neighbor might think.
Have you ever been there?
No.
You both have to go just to see it. Just you go, wow. I mean, ships. I looked them up. Some of the yachts, not ships, but these were 100+ feet with a full crew, and you go, wow, and you look them up, and they're from other countries. And you dang, why is this here?
Yeah.
And the restaurants but it's slow, easy living. It's called turtle life. I mean, you got slow, easy, no stoplights, but you better not get a slow lane in front of those people in those golf carts, so they'll come by you and they'll give you the ugly eye, stink eye.
I just think they were picking that location just for logistical purpose, not.
I'm with Tim. I think there's some. I think there were some users of it.
They might have been, but I don't think they were part of that. I think the deal was, let's go to this location because, they don't do anything, or it's quiet, nobody's out and about. We don't have to worry about getting stopped in a car or being, rolled up in the back of a parking lot somewhere. We don't look suspicious.
Right. Tim, what do you think?
I'm still upset over how the crime scene was handled, how it was washed away, how fast. Let's get this over and out.
Over a wedding.
Yeah.
And it could be if big sheriff guy if he's on the take with drug people, he might have been the one to suggest go to this location.
Very well could.
I'm protecting you as this group, but I'm going to arrest all these other groups. So you go here where we're not going to be at, and we'll be arresting. You tell us who all your competition is, and we'll arrest them for you. Make you more money. I mean, this is how the corruption in the drug world works.
And again, I knew the sheriff. I didn't know him personally, but I knew, and he was convicted and sent to federal prison. And, and then he
even
out.
admitted that he did.
Yeah, he got out and then was charged again under a state charge and got sent back to his own jail, and then got into a fight with his one of the jailers, and the jailer tased him, and he was found dead in his cell. So, which is tragic, and I hate it for his family, and I hate it for anyone. But it's just a crazy. People wouldn't believe it. I mean, you see this, and you say, how can that really happen? It'd make a hell of a book. So, yeah. And there is a book called Out with 3. So I recommend all the readers. And
is she a local writer?
She goes by the pseudonym, and I'll put it on our Facebook page. I think you put I think the last time I asked you to, but I don't know if we got to it or not. But we'll put it on our Facebook page. The author of the book, Out with 3. I've ordered it, but I haven't got it yet. She goes by the last name of Jones, I believe. Anyhow, but I'll put that on her Facebook page. But you were talking about the crime scene. The SBI was called in. But again, they had nothing to
go on.
Yeah, there was no crime scene there. It was gone. So,
I mean, I guess they could take pictures like you did. Is basically all they could do.
Yeah. What we got for last call today, Timbo?
Woodford Reserve, I think. I'm not for sure.
We've had that before, but I'm looking forward to that. I hadn't had a drink in about 12 hours, so I need one.
We need everybody to give us comments on this episode and see what
we do. What they think.
We're going to close this one out because it's sad, it's tragic, but it's been interesting, I think, and I've enjoyed doing the research on it, and I want to keep this story alive because, and if we hear any more, and if we get enough feedback, and we've had some pretty good feedback on it, people wanting to know more, but I would like for some of these computer detectives that we have to get involved with.
Oh, yeah.
And especially those that travel that can go out there and just ask questions and look around and see what they can do.
It is sad it's never had any attention at all.
None.
I mean, it's terrible.
None. I mean, it didn't get the media attention it deserved because it was ruled a suicide, so it didn't really get the media that it deserved. So it's tragic. All right, we're going to close this one out, and we'll be back next week, hopefully. Again, we apologize for not being on the air for the last couple of weeks, but we'll be back in a couple of weeks or next week, I hope.
Hopefully.
So
we'll see. But Thanksgiving coming up, so we'll see. Hopefully.
Yeah. Hope everybody has a good Thanksgiving. Thanks for joining us. See you next week. Bye. Welcome back, everyone, to Monday Afternoon Roundtable. Last call.
Best part.
Yep.
Woodford Reserve.
Woodford Reserve. And if you've never had Woodford Reserve, you got to try it. It's one of my favorites. We've had it on the show before, but it was available, and we're going to have it again, Jason.
I don't think I took any of that. That might have been
man.
important. So this might be.
It was early on when we
Yeah.
did.
So this will be a first for
good.
me with this one.
I used to have a friend that would go to Kentucky about 3 times a year, and every time she would come back through, she'd come by my house, and she'd leave a bottle on the front porch. Oh, it was so good. A little bit about Woodford Reserve. It's crafted from a grain recipe of 72% corn, 18% rye, and 10% malted barley. The recipe balances the sweetness of corn with the spice of rye and the nuttiness of malt to build the base for the world's most flavorful bourbon. And that's true. You can taste those flavors and you will see when you drink it. Tim's had it before, and I know he likes it. So it's
It's 90 proof, I believe.
It's I believe that's right, 90 proof. Yep, 90.4 proof. Good call. And this is batch 931, bottle 8,419. I think I've had 8,000 of them. So
Tell you a quick story on. I did a estate sales over the weekend. I got tipped off of some liquor decanters from a friend of mine, so I went and bought them.
Thank you.
Some of them are 1965, 1967, and 1973, and it still has the liquor in them.
Wow.
the shit.
So if y'all want to be brave, boys, I'll let you taste
Well, you
it.
know it's good.
I'll-
It's
Is
still
a
got the
seal
seal on it.
Yeah.
Not the seal, but it's been open, but
Oh.
it's got the cork in it.
What is it? Ceramic bottles or
Yeah.
glass?
They're glass.
Remember, Dad had some of those old ceramic bottles.
Yeah.
Had the wild turkey, had
Yeah.
the turkeys and
Yeah.
stuff, and whatever
it-
happened. You got those, didn't you?
Did he not have one that was a Minnesota Viking? It was a Viking, but it was for the Minnesota
I think
Vikings.
so. Yeah, I don't
Because
know.
I remember that for some reason.
Yeah. All right. Who we toasting to today?
Hickory High School and Bunker Hill High School
yeah.
School football teams are undefeated.
Is that right?
Yeah, and they're in the fourth round of the playoffs.
Both teams in Catawba County, so let's give them a shout out.
All
I
right.
think that's
Bunker Hill Bears and the Hickory,
Hickory Red,
Red Tornadoes.
Red Tornadoes.
Yeah.
Cool.
So let's give them
Congratulations,
a.
team. Yay. Ah, that's good.
Oh, it's smooth.
Yeah, and you taste all those flavors I was talking about.
Golly, that's smooth.
Yeah, that's good. Good stuff.
Very smooth for that proof. That's a great drink.
What do you think about our U.S. Congress, WWE?
Yeah. Got
No Bernie's the referee.
yeah.
It's embarrassing.
Oh, it truly is.
It's embarrassing.
There are no statesmen anymore. When a man challenges you to fight in the halls of Congress and you take your wedding band off, like that's going to help. I don't know what that was all about. I'd leave it on, wouldn't you? It may give you a little edge.
Yeah, I don't know.
Who would have won that, Tim? Who do you think would have
Well,
won?
the congressman or the senator was a MMA fighter.
Yeah, it's 4-0.
So I imagine he would.
Yeah.
Well, the Teamster guy wasn't too worried. He didn't actually worry.
I think he was playing him. He was wanting to get hurt and make some money. Or at least make him look like
You know
an
what
idiot.
I'd have done? I'd have said, "Bring it on, big boy!" And as soon as he'd had to chase me all the way around the damn building.
I think people at first thought it was like, I can't believe this is happening.
It's two idiots. It was one idiot.
Well, the Teamster guy played it too. He could have. He
knew
could.
what button to mash. And
Yeah, and he could have backed it down a little bit, but he wasn't the primary jackass.
But that was his job.
Well,
to
the
make
sergeant
it.
of arms dropped the ball too. His job is to keep him under control for one, but the chairman, Bernie Sanders, he did what he was.
Sit down, you're a U.S. Senator. Sit down.
Sit your ass down. Well, I mean that's what he's supposed to do.
I know. Yeah,
He did it.
I'm just making fun of the way he
Well,
talks
you did it. You nailed it.
and the way he does his hand.
He has mittens. He wears mittens.
And then you had the congressman that elbowed the other one in the
He was
kidneys.
the former speaker.
Yeah.
And he's been known to do that before.
He's been accused of that before.
And our new speaker, I think he's living on borrowed time.
Yeah.
So we'll see about all that. But
What about
it's-
George Santos?
He's living on borrowed time.
Oh, yeah, everybody hates him.
He's
doesn't
not
they?
going to run again.
No.
So as he shouldn't. He should be expelled.
And using his campaign funds to.
That goes to one party. They're the only ones that can do that. And
Yeah.
But they can't.
refuse to do it.
They can't afford to lose that position or that vote.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how close it is. You can't afford.
He was using campaign funds for Botox and OnlyFans.
He's a effing idiot.
Mm-hmm.
And why the good folks in New York voted him in, I do not know, but they did. And I just got back from there, and they're really good people.
Is it upstate New York?
Yes.
Yeah, he's New York.
He's a con man. He's a good con man. You gotta vet these people, and they didn't vet him, for sure. So anyhow,
Changing the subject, let's talk about some beer. Coors Beer. Do you know why they would not go east past the Mississippi?
because it's refrigerated.
That's exactly right.
It's
You knew that.
pasteurizer.
Damn. Thought I was going to get you. They had 11 distribution centers.
We couldn't get it here when we were gone.
And they didn't want to pay for refrigerated trucking because they wouldn't put preservatives in the beer, and so it had to be refrigerated, and they wouldn't pay for that until, and even before it went east of the Mississippi, it was the 4th highest selling beer in the United States.
Truck drivers made that beer famous by hauling it all
No.
back across
On
the
the
country.
runs, yeah.
Fast, quickly, in a certain amount of time. There's a movie made about it. Smokey and the Bandit.
And Smokey and Bandit was made for $4.5 million, and $1 million of that was paid to Burt Reynolds.
Yeah.
And Hal Needham wrote the script and gave it to Burt to read, and Burt said it was the worst screenplay he's ever seen. And he said, "Let's make the movie."
And Hal Needham used to come to Taylorsville, North Carolina all the time and eat at the coffee shop.
He owned a race car.
He owned Harry Gant's race car.
And
I
Quentin
used to see him all the time.
Quentin Tarantino's movie, To Live and Die, or To Live in Hollywood, or Live and Die in Hollywood, something Hollywood, that one with Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio, is based on, loosely based on Burt Reynolds and Hal Needham. Because Hal Needham one time crashed it for a couple of months at Burt Reynolds' house. Slept on his couch.
Is Hal Needham still alive?
No.
He was a wild guy. I remember him coming into the coffee shop with a fanny pack in 1981 or 82. And we went, what the F?
Yeah.
Who is this guy and what's he got on?
Is he carrying a gun and money?
I'm sure it was. And Harry looked at us and goes, whoosh, don't say anything, guys, because he knew us and he knew, like, we were going to say, what the hell's in that bag? It's probably cocaine, whatever.
Yeah.
We didn't say anything, of course, but the movie, the trucks in that movie were from Douglas and Sons.
Really?
in
At Statesville?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And there's some of them still there
Yeah.
in
And
the back of the lot.
they paid for 4 Trans Ams and a couple of trucks, I think. And but it didn't cost a lot of money, and it was the second highest grossing film of 1977. And nobody expected to be.
Little story about Mr. Douglas. Did you ever meet him?
No.
Well, he's one of the best people I ever knew. And I was at the office one day, and the phone rang, and it was the dispatcher from Douglas and Son. And they had a big operation, huge north-south operation. He said, Dave, he said, this is such and such. I'm not going to say his name because he would kill me. He said, Mr. Douglas would like for you to come up and join his little game tonight. Said they're having a little poker game at the office. Said, I'd like for you to join them. And that's when Tim and Daddy and all of us were playing poker heavy. And so he knew I played poker. I said, yeah, I'll come. So I go my little cheap ass in there, and I looked around. I said, I'm in the wrong place. I lasted about 2 hours, maybe. Whew. It was big time. But he was a charm of a man, gentleman. He knew I was out of my league, but he let he let me play. So he's been dead. His sons still run the company, big company.
Yeah. Still see their trucks around.
Yeah. But what else going on, Tim? Seen our buddy Hardy lately?
No.
I'd love to see him.
See, he's going back to the gym, starting to work out with his son.
Yeah.
Yeah, he joined the gym. Doing a 6 a.m. every morning.
Brad must have gotten his ass. Dr. Brad got in his ass, told him he was going to have to work out.
Well, and he said it was good. You know, they got to spend quality time together, and he was enjoying it.
Well, good. His little grandson's growing up fast. Looks just like Tim. When Tim was little, I think, when they were little. I can remember them. So, great whiskey. I recommend it to everyone. Woodward Reserve. You're not going to go wrong with that.
What kind of rating we going to throw on
I'm
this
going to give it a high 9.
Low 9.
I'm going to give it a 9.9.
There you go.
I thought it was good.
Dang.
That was real good.
Perfect.
And the only one that hadn't beat is that one we got from Canada a couple of weeks
Oh,
back.
that was good too. Yeah. That was really good. So, anyhow, we had a good podcast today.
Share and like.
Yeah, please do.
And let us know what you think. You know, what do you think about the case?
Yeah,
You know, let us
Davina.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a sad case. Yeah, let us know. And this is our final episode on Davina Jones, but let us know what you think, and we can continue it and dig a little deeper into it. And anything comes up, we'll talk about.
And me and David, we hadn't talked to Tim about it, but maybe doing some famous cases. We talked about D.B. Cooper.
D.B. Cooper, yeah.
And Natalie Wood. Some other, whatever. We can talk about all kinds of stuff.
The D.B. Cooper case is kind of cool. I looked a little bit into it. It's got some
Yeah.
scary stuff involved in it.
He had some backbone.
Yeah, he had balls as big as church bells, as Tim says.
Yeah, buddy.
Jump out of that damn airplane.
Over the Rocky Mountains, wasn't it?
You know, they found some of the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, anyhow. Yeah. All right. Thanks again for joining us. See you next week. Monday Afternoon Roundtable. Bye.